Today, quick and dirty, how to round trip out of Lightroom into Photoshop 2024 and do some really insane distraction removal using the new Generative fill. It's eye-opening and super easy. Welcome everyone, it's Hudson. Today, some really fun stuff. I'm still out gallivanting around the Scottish Highlands getting ready for next year's Scotland workshop. But I thought I'd do this video taking us back to the warm, sunny days in Moab last month, having a look at this panoramic capture of Delicate Arch, the whole big open bowl where everybody gathers up there for sunset, and doing some crazy distraction removal. Taking this 30 frame HDR panorama from this to that. And really, in an easy way I never really would have considered possible. So, we've heard a ton about generative fill and this AI capability that's been in beta and now it's launched in Photoshop 2024. Well, I want to show you how easy it is as a Lightroom user, as just the photography playing user, to take an image with some distractions and run it through this new capability in Photoshop to just get rid of stuff in a few clicks and bring it back into Lightroom ready to run with. So some really cool stuff. And quickly before I jump in, I know there's a lot of discussion about, well, there's tokens and somehow it costs some amount to use generative fill in Photoshop. They're launching it, at least at this point, where I believe each time you click generative fill, it's a token. One token. I don't know why they're using tokens, but that's what they're calling it. And so I'll show you a way to kind of maximize your use of tokens, but you get 250 of them per month on the photography plan. On the big all-inclusive plan like I have, where I use Adobe Premiere and Acrobat and all those Adobe apps for the full suite users, it's 1,000 uses per month, 1,000 tokens per month. So it's not something to stress about, at least at this point, but I'll show you along the way how to minimize your use of those tokens in case you want to be doing tons of this stuff, which after you watch this, you might. All right, so I'm here in Lightroom Classic, the latest version, which integrates well with Photoshop 2024. And I've got a bunch of images here from our workshop last month in Moab. And the one that I'm gonna work on is this one. I'm gonna just press the E key. If I press the E key, it opens up the loop view. You could also just click on this loop view. We're here in the library. And you can see this is a stacked group of images. I have it filtered down to just my flagged favorites, but this image is made up of a whole bunch of other images. If we take a look at a 28 millimeter or well, this is a 46 millimeter. This is from a little distance, but if we're a little bit closer where I actually took this frame, this is a 28 millimeter view of what you'd see of Delicate Arch. This is a panorama at 24 millimeters with my 24 to 120 right as the sun set. Bracketing, it's a 10 frame panorama, but each frame is bracketed. 3 stops underexposed on the light meter, 3 stops overexposed, and then I selected all those images. If you select multiple images in your grid in Lightroom, we won't do this right now, but if you select multiple images in your grid, you can right click and say photo merge, and one of your options is HDR panorama. I took those 30 images, the 10 overlapping bracketed frames, and clicked that, and out came this panorama. I have cropped it a little bit. If we look at it, I hit the R key, which is shortcut for the crop tool, this tool right here in the develop module. You can see I shot it wider than I thought I needed, and I've cropped in a bit to a look that I like. And I went through and I did a little bit of editing. I went into the masking capabilities in Lightroom and selected the sky. And that was this mask right here, and I did some editing to the sky to differentially edit the look of the sky, then the foreground and rock, and then I right-clicked that mask and said duplicate and invert, and that gave me a mask that was just the foreground where I was really able to boost the shadows without affecting the shadows and blue in the sky, and I got the edit looking like I wanted. And it's really important, I think, for you to think about going in and doing all the editing that you want on the raw file. In this case, it's a linear HDR file that has the latitude of a raw file to edit. You want to do all of that in Lightroom before you're going to move in and do any distraction removal work in Photoshop, because when we're working in Lightroom, it is a raw workflow. All we're doing is writing little metadata instructions around how to display that raw data. It's not changing a pixel, it's just instructing how to display those pixels. Once we go into Photoshop, we're creating a new version of this file, and we're gonna go in and really do some work that's moving pixels around, changing pixels. So if we shut this guy down, and you can see this is a huge file, 17,200 plus pixels by nearly 7,500 pixels. It's a really high resolution image, larger than medium format by far. And it gives us this really wide perspective of delicate arch, wider than we can normally get. It was exactly what I was after, but I wasn't after all these people in the frame. And if anybody's used Lightroom, you know, beyond doing any sort of dust on the sensor type, you know, work, the cleanup tools, you know, whether you're using the eraser tool or the healing brush or the clone tool, it's a bit frustrating. You can see I went in and cleaned up a bit of sensor dust that I had, which had propagated across the frame due to the nature of a panorama. You know, and that's the kind of thing I would do in Lightroom. I had a little bit of a dusty sensor. I stopped down to f16 when I was capturing each of these frames in order to get that beautiful sunstar with my 24-to-120 lens. The problem is, you know, if I go in here and I'll open up this left panel, I'll just click to keep it open, and I try to use my erase tool in Lightroom and do this in a raw workflow and paint over this woman here by the rocks, I think you'll see Lightroom tends to do a rather crummy job of this kind of thing. I'll paint over this woman too, and then we jump in and we have a look. Sometimes it's better than others. I know this might surprise me, but in general, yeah, you can see both of those. There's something wrong here. There's definitely something wrong there. You print that big, people are gonna be like, well, what happened there? So I'm just gonna hit Command Z, that'd be Control Z on the PC. That's undo, and we'll put those blurry people back there. And this is a job for me, more for Photoshop. You know, the healing brush is gonna be even worse. It's just gonna blur everything. Those are more tools for taking a pimple out of someone's face, or again, a sensor dust spot out of the sky. You know, those things work for that kind of thing. You know, if we wanted to take this little contrail out, I would grab the healing brush and just make my brush small and whoop, shoot that little bloop, and your contrail is gone. For this type of work though, I want to jump into Photoshop, and I can be here in the develop part of Lightroom or in the library, in the grid, in the loop, doesn't matter. If I right click the image or the thumbnail image and I say edit in, and I say Adobe Photoshop 2024, it's going to fire up Photoshop. We're going to open up that image. I haven't upgraded my Mac OS operating system the way that Lightroom would like. I always do that as late as possible because I just don't love dealing with compatibility issues. Anyhow, and so the first thing I'm going to do here in Photoshop is remove some of those distractions. So we'll jump in and I'll use the tool. It's a tool that's relatively new to Photoshop, but it's just awesome. The remove tool, which if you don't see it, it's got these little sparkles beside it. You might see the spot healing brush instead right there. If you long click any of these tools that have a little triangle on the bottom right corner, you have more than one tool there. We're going to select the remove tool instead. And before I do any of that, I've got my layers panel right here. You know, over here kind of docked. I can get rid of that so I can see the whole image by hitting the tab key. It gets rid of all my tools. But I've got that right there. And what I want to do is create a new layer. I'm going to duplicate that background layer so that anything I do is being done on a separate layer. I could turn that off, turn that on, and I'm basically creating kind of a copy of my image that we're actually working on. So I'm not not destroying the background image or changing the pixels too much in the background image. And I want to zoom in to see what I'm doing. And I'm going to do that by just pressing Command plus a few times. And then I'll hold the space bar down. Space bar just changes whatever tool I have to the hand tool, which lets me kind of throw the image around. And I'll show you why I love this remove tool. This is a great distraction removal tool. And you can just sort of draw a circle around the thing you want to remove. So you don't have to paint the whole thing in. You just say, here's this circle. I want to get rid of my photographer here who's working with a ball head, but no center column. That's cool. Look at that. Boom, just gone. All right. I could say, well, you know, it's kind of weird that his shadow is still there. Let's just take that out too. Simple as drawing a little circle around it. Good. All right. How about this woman? This is a little more complicated bit, right? In crossing in front of the rocks that Lightroom did such a bad job with. Head up over the horizon. Let's see how the remove tool handles her. Beautiful. So there's not much reason to be burning any generative fill tokens just yet, given that the remove tool is just a free as much as you want to use it tool. And like I said, you know, we've got this layer that we're working on. If I turn that layer off, we still have everything remaining on the background layer. We're just kind of creating a copy of that layer, the image as a whole, and saying, well, let's get rid of some distractions. And so we'll take this guy with his cell phone out. Nice, gone, all right? Now let me show you where the generative fill comes in. You know, if we try this tool with these ghosts, these little images of the different elements in my lens that got a little overwhelmed from shooting straight into the sun, if I circle those, you know, this is something when the remove tool first came out, I was super excited to try, but unfortunately, it also takes out the sun's ray. I want to undo that. I can either go up to edit and say undo the remove tool. I can also do Command Z. You can see that shortcut is listed there, right there. Command Z, it's Control Z for the PC. I'll just go ahead and click it. All right, so we don't want to do that, all right? Well, that's where we get this new generative fill. I thought, what if I just lasso it? Lasso is a selection tool that just lets you hand draw, whether you're using, you know, a Wacom tablet or a mouse. It lets you draw a selection by hand. So I'm just going to kind of draw a tight little circle around the part I want to get rid of here, all right? The part I'm not very happy with. All right. Whoop. There we go. Well, and I'm gonna hold the Shift key down because I missed a little space in the middle. The Shift key gives me a little plus. I want to add to that selection, so I'll just draw that little guy in. All right. Now we got the whole thing. If you hit the Option key, you can subtract. I could say, well, I didn't need to be quite so tight right through there, did I? Let's remove that from our selection. You can really fine-tune your selection just drawing it by hand with these tools. And you'll see the minute we create a selection, we get this little dialog box. You can grab this little silver slider beside it and move it around if you want. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to click Generative Fill. Boom. And you could type, you know, I want a pack of hyenas here. That's kind of been the headline of all this, is that artificial intelligence will replace whatever you've selected with whatever you want. But if you just leave it blank, how does it work as a distraction tool? You know, this sort of fascinated me. These little ghosts are hard to get rid of. Sometimes you just leave them there, you know. It's obviously a photograph. That's part of, wow, mind blown. So, holy cow. You know, that is amazing. You know, I would say that to save on your tokens, if you've got multiple of these, use that Shift key, you know, select something, say we want to get rid of this, not that we do, and then you could Shift and do that, and then you could Shift and do this, and Shift and do that, and then hit Generative Fill all at the same time. You burn one token that way. Let's deselect everything. Let's instead, though, remember we've got this awesome remove tool, and it doesn't burn any tokens at all. Oh, the other thing I forgot to show you is that you get this properties. I'm pulling this over from my other screen. This is another panel that's active here. And Generative Fill gives you variations. Each variation is slightly different. See how that changed? See how that changed? We can take a look at it and decide, you know, which one matches the original best. And we can see that by just turning off the variation and having a look. How did it look before? All right, we'll turn our layers back on. That's pretty similar to how it looked before. that's pretty wild and wonderful. They all look fantastic. You know, we can delete the ones that we're not going to use. It makes this file size smaller, or you can save them. You can use them. They all look really good to me. You know, looking at the 3 variations, that's the original. I think that one's really nice. We're going to go with that middle variation. All right. And then we go back to our background copy. You have to be clicked on our background copy in order to do the remove tool again. You can't be clicked on your generative fill layer. And you can just circle. Let's see how that works. Do we need to do generative fill for that? Nope, worked just fine. Do we need to do generative fill for this little dude? Nope, worked just fine. All right, now we got some people over here. Let's work on seeing if we can remove some of those people pretty easily with the remove tool and not burn any generative fill tokens. Whoop, she's gone. How about these two? You can just run through. If you have somebody that's really problematic, you can go ahead. Well, it's doing a great job. I don't see why you'd burn any tokens for these particular movements. It looks pretty great. Circle that. And gone. Great. All right. Be careful with drawing this line right here. Come around the top, see how they look. Perfect. So you get the idea. The remove tool is just awesome for this stuff. And it makes removing distractions just a simple breeze, you know. So this is one of those things that is easy to do in Photoshop. It's just a few clicks. You know, I'll go through and remove all the rest of these distractions. I will have you note though, you know, this is creating a much bigger file. If you're sure you're happy with all the distraction removals that you've done, you know, you have a look at what this looked like before versus after. You can go in to make the file smaller and say flatten the image, and that will merge all of these layers and make your image much, much smaller. I'm not going to make you watch while I do the remove tool on all these other people, but I'm going to do it really quick and I'll speed it up. And they're all gone. So, you know, as I was talking about, we can make this file smaller. If we're sure we like what we're looking at, you know, and let's hit the tab key. Wow, that is just a massive improvement. And you could look at what we had before. Wow, okay. I'm gonna move this off and show you what I'm talking about here. So here is our remove tool work, and here is our generative fill. All right, if we like all of that, what we can do is go in here and we've got these layers. This is making this file much, much bigger if we were to save it on our hard drive. You can think of saving it with all these layers as sort of saving your work. You could always go back and edit. But instead what I'm gonna do is just go into my layer menu here and say flatten image. Boom. You could also say merge visible, but flatten image. Now we just have back to one background layer again, all right? And it's looking fabulous. All I have to do is hit File Save. That's Command or Control for the PC, S. I hit that Save. Boom. It's saved as a Photoshop document. No longer is it that DNG file. And we go ahead, close Photoshop, and you'll find that file stacked in on top of the original DNG. So once again, there's our file that we started with, and we can close this panel to get a wider view of it. And here's the distraction removal we just did. You really can't do that in Lightroom alone. Photoshop's so powerful with that remove tool and the generative fill. Okay, so really, I mean, cool stuff. This makes me really think about going back and looking at some older images of mine with a new eye to this capability. And that is the beauty of shooting raw digital. The fact that you're able to run back and redo images start to finish if you want, or just from some level where you were at if you're saving all your moves, with the new technology that continually becomes available. So, you know, images from way back 20 years ago, you can run back and do some of this distraction removal with, and it's pretty darned cool. So, hope you enjoyed that. The only announcements I have, you know, we're doing a set of office hours looking at your best images of 2023. All the information about that is up on the Office Hours sign up page. You can sign up for Zoom or YouTube Live. You can click right here. It's going to be on December 5th. That's a Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific. We'll run through your images and we'll pick some of our favorites and we'll give some prizes for that. So, run through, get your images. You can submit them when you sign up. And it's one of my favorite things to do is image review, whether in workshops or whether we're doing it in office hours. I learned so much from looking through other people's eyes at how they see the world, and I think everyone can get value from that. So I hope to see you there. Make sure you sign up for that. Again, links to all the gear that I use and love are always available at hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. You can click right there again. Those links really help me out, so I certainly appreciate you using those. We have 95mm case filters in the store now in kits and individually, along with step-up rings for 95s. Since the new 180-600 is such a popular lens, and I know a lot of people prefer 95mm filters that are using Nikon's 14-30mm lens or other brands' lenses that have 82mm filter rings just to avoid vignetting, particularly when stacking those. So we're carrying stuff now in 82, 95, and 112. You can find all that stuff over at the case page on my website. While I'm in Scotland, I'm having fun with the guys from Naya Evo, looking at some new prototype stuff. Look for announcements on all of that soon. I love working with those guys, and I truly believe they're making the best photo-specific backpacks on the planet for outdoor use. I mean, they are awesome. So check out all that stuff over at my site. It's easy to find, hudsonhenry.com. All right, thanks so much, everybody. I hope to see you in the office hours on December 5th. I hope to be looking at your images. Make sure you submit. Don't be shy. Hope you're all out there staying creative, staying safe, and we'll see you next week.